All right, the regular meeting of the mayor and the city council, city of Port Allen, Louisiana, days Wednesday, December the 14th, 2022, is 5:38 p.m. City council chambers, third floor, Port Allen City Hall. Each person must decide before entering the chamber which agenda item they wish to comment on. If they are not seated in the chambers when the agenda item is heard, they will be notified by an officer to enter the council chambers to address the agenda item. Agenda, please silence all electronic devices. Agenda item number 1, call to order. Agenda item number 2, pledge allegiance. Please stand. Hey, you can't lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Agenda item 3, roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Right.
Ms. Gordon? Here. Mr. Hubble? Here. Lacy? Present. Riviere?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, first business of order, council. We want to amend this agenda for today. We forgot to add the Provost Salter and offered presentation of the 2021-2022 audit report for the city of Port Allen. I got a motion by Councilman Brown, second by Councilwoman Gordon. Any objections? Hearing none?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon? Yes. Mr. Hubble? Yes. Lacy?
Yes.
Mr. Riviere?
Yes.
Okay. We're gonna make that agenda item 5A. Yes, sir. Say it again. Okay. Hey, council, we'll make another amendment to the agenda. Item 14 on the alcoholic beverage permits. We want to add 2 other establishments. It's going to be the Circle K and Walgreens. I got a motion by Councilman Brown, second by Councilwoman Gordon. Any objections? Hearing none?
Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon? Yes. Mr. Hubble? Yes. Lacy?
Yes.
Mr. Riviere?
Yes.
And there'll be item number 2 and 3 under 14. All right. Agenda item 4, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November the 9th, 2022. Got a motion by Councilwoman Gordon,
Second.
second by Councilman Riviere. Any objections? Hearing none?
Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon? Yes. Hubble? Yes. Lacy?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, public comments. Comments from the public are allowed in accordance with the Louisiana Revised Statute 42:11, Section 2 through 34, and specifically limited to an agenda item to be considered during the meeting. 3 minutes per person and 15 minutes per topic. No one to speak, but I see, what's your name, sir? Sidney Williams. And you were here to speak on the condemnations? Anybody else? That's Miss Holmes.
Oh. Can't tell her with the mask.
All right. Agenda item 5.A, Provost and Salter and offered presentation of the 2021-2022 audit report for the city of Port Allen. Mr. Tanny?
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Also have the SAS 114 letter, communication and governance. This is required for us. This is where I'm going to start. It's the 4-page, starting with our responsibility. This letter is required for auditing standards. We have to communicate to you guys it's anything that came up during the audit, what we do, what's management's responsibility. First, we have to inform you if the financial statements prepared by management with your oversight doesn't present fairly in all these material respects. Our audit does not relieve you of your responsibility, you as in governance and management, your responsibility of presenting and preparing financial statements. And we have also provided our findings regarding control deficiency or financial reporting, material weaknesses and material non-compliance in a separate report. We'll hit on that once we go through the audit report in more detail. The audit was planned, we have a draft of the audit report, so we're not exactly 100% done, but we usually try to present this draft before.
Excuse me, you're talking to the mic a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
Is it on?
sorry about that.
Is it on?
It's on? Am I just not?
No, it's not.
No.
I can try to speak loud. Oh, goodness. All right. Yeah, that works out better.
Yeah, that worked fine.
All right. So we're presenting a draft. We're not exactly 100% done with the fieldwork testing. One of the last things that we're trying to wrap up is low-income housing. But we're pretty close on that. And there's a statewide AUP that we still got to finalize. All right. We're going to get this sooner or later. But within the scope, we have to have this submitted to the legislative auditor by December 31st. We're in good shape to do that, but I do just want to note that's why everything's marked as draft on y'all's statements. Flipping over to the next page, we have to be compliant with all ethical requirements regarding independence. We're independent, but we do perform a few non-attest services for the city of Port Allen, being that they might increase the risk of our management participation in self-review threats. So what we do is we prepare. Is that better? We prepare journal entries for the city of Port Allen to get them correct for the trial balance so that we can present the financial statements. We also prepare GASB entries for the city of Port Allen so that they're within governmental auditing standards for the government-wide statements, and that involves pension liability, OPEB, or other post-employment benefits, compensated absences for the general fund, and anything else that might come up, such as property and equipment. So we help prepare those entries. What we do is we have somebody within our auditing firm that is not involved in the audit to perform a second review, an independent check to see if we're doing everything correctly. And we do have management, Mayor Lee and Falk and Winkler, y'all's outsourced accounting firm, is also going to review through everything, sign a rep letter, and sign some of the schedules that we present to them. We do have some significant risks that we identified in planning our audit. Improper revenue recognition is a presumptively mandatory requirement to consider. It's nothing specifically for you guys, it's just for every audit. You have to consider that there is a risk of fraud due to improper revenue recognition. Also, the calculation of utility billings is a significant risk that we identified in prior years. What we do is we expand our test of billings to commercial and residential customers to make sure that they're being billed at the right rate based on usage and consumption. And in the prior year, bank account reconciliations weren't performed timely. And y'all have a control account for claim on pooled cash. Y'all have one account, but y'all have 3 funds that are using that account. They just need to be properly reconciled in time. and I'll go over it later, but we did not note any issues with these when we were concluding our audit. Qualitative aspects for the year, y'all did have a new GASB 87 lease standard that was implemented. Y'all do have significant estimates as well, depreciation based on the useful life of an asset, allowance for uncollectible accounts for accounts receivable, and OPEB and pension liabilities. All these are estimates that are based on either actuaries, reports, or historical allowances based on uncollected amounts. And like I mentioned, useful life of an asset that we depreciate over time. We encountered no significant difficulties during the audit. Journal entries are not finalized, but we do not anticipate there to be any uncorrected misstatements. We assume that management will make all entries as they've done in the past. We've had no disagreements with management. We do not have a management representation letter as we're not finalized with the audit, but we will get that. And we are not aware of any consultations with other accountants. And that takes care of the SAS 114 letter. So then in the audit report, I'll mainly focus on the MD&A schedules. But starting with the audit report itself, starting on page 1, we currently have an unmodified opinion, meaning it's clean. Nothing to note there. Management's responsibility is for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements and for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements and to review internal controls to assess the risk of material misstatement, but we do not provide an opinion on internal controls. There are other matters. We have required supplementary information schedules in the back, mainly for the pension, OPEB, and budgetary, budget to actual comparisons that you have to present for your governmental funds. And for supplementary information, for legislative auditor for the state of Louisiana, you have to present certain schedules such as the schedule of compensation to board members, schedule of compensation to the agency head, which is the mayor, and a judicial expense reporting. The City Court of Port Allen remits fine revenue to the city. They passed an act last year to report those fines that the city receives. So we also will submit that for the City of Port Allen to the legislative auditor when we're complete. And we have a report on internal control and compliance in the back that we'll hit later. Going to the statement of net position. On page 9 of the audit report for the MD&A schedule, y'all had a pretty good year when I'm looking at the numbers. For governmental activities, assets went up, debt's going down, and y'all's unrestricted balance for net position went up. A lot of that is due to long-term debt went significantly down. That's mainly due to the pension liability adjustment and other post-employment benefit adjustments that were made from the actuary reports. And y'all do have extra cash due to increased revenues that y'all receive from sales tax. And if you note, there is an increase in restricted assets for cash. That is y'all's American Rescue Plan Act funds that y'all received before the year end that y'all are going to use for sewer improvements. There's a few projects already that y'all have kind of committed to. So that's what that restricted asset is increases for. On page 10 of the MD&A, looking at the statement of changes in net position for revenues, the biggest increases that I've noticed that I wanted to highlight was in the general or governmental activities. Y'all had a $631,000 increase in intergovernmental revenues. That is almost all sales tax collected from the parish. It's just high. And I think it's remaining strong from when we talked with the mayor earlier today. And y'all also had an increase in charges for services in water and gas for the business type activities. That's kind of washed out in an increase in expenditures. That's gas. From June 2021 through June 2022, gas basically tripled. So y'all buy the gas from the provider, and then y'all charge customers for it. So it's an increase on the revenue side, but it's also an increase on the expenditure side. And on the next page, for the statement of change in the net position for expenditures, the biggest difference between these is on your general public safety and roads and drainage, y'all have had a pretty big decrease in expenditures. Again, that's mainly the change in other post-employment benefit liability and pension liability. That can swing from any year to year. Last year it increased, this year it decreased. It's just based on environment and assumptions that the actuary uses. So I wouldn't necessarily say that's going to remain, because with inflation and everything going on today, it might actually increase next year. So just kind of keep note of that. Turning to page 14, fixed assets for governmental funds. On this PowerPoint, it's a little more broken out. Y'all have had an increase in acquisitions this year. Y'all purchased 3 new vehicles, 2 for police, 1 for road and drainage. And y'all had audio and video upgrades for the council room that are in here.
You'd never know.
Well, y'all do have it.
Oh, yeah.
And turn to the next page for proprietary funds. A little bit more activity, same thing. Half of it went to the water and gas fund for the audio and video upgrades. You also had water system upgrades, sewer system upgrades. Y'all had a wastewater treatment plant upgrade for a clarifier project. And y'all have some construction in progress that was not completed as of June 30th, but they should be done by the time next year rolls around. So that's not being depreciated yet. It doesn't get depreciated until it's complete. But those are sewer system upgrades primarily. There's a small water system upgrade as well in there, but that's almost all sewer system. Flipping over to the next page, page 15 of the MD&A, long-term liabilities. This is kind of going back to, a repeat. I've had a significant decrease in debt and liabilities for long-term. Most of it is y'all have had a $3,265,000 decrease in total debt. $2,500,000 is a change in net pension liability. Again, that's based on actuary assumptions that can change in any given year. Y'all also paid off the revenue bond 2011, the last payment on that bond of $170,000. Y'all made a $95,000 bond payment on the revenue bond for the sewer fund. And y'all also had a decrease in OPEB liability of about $480,000. And y'all did refinance the 2011 bond and replace it with the 2021 revenue bond. Y'all got a lower interest rate, so y'all technically received proceeds of $1.6 million, and that's what that addition is. But y'all paid off the old bond in full. So it's in and out, but just to make it tied and to show you how that went, that's laid out right there. And that's really about it as far as operations go and the balance sheet. I don't know if y'all have any questions about that while we're on the topic. If not, we can turn over to page 86 of the audit report. This is our report on internal control and compliance. This is required under governmental auditing standards. And just to clarify, this review's purpose is for the planning and performing an audit, but it's not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on it. And we don't express an opinion on y'all's internal controls. And kind of go over some definitions. Material weakness is a deficiency or a combination of deficiencies in internal control, such that there's a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement of the entity's financial statements will not be prevented or detected and corrected on a timely basis. And a significant deficiency is slightly less severe. It's a control that is less severe than a material weakness, yet it's important enough to bring to your attention. This year we have one material weakness internal control finding, and we do have 4 non-compliance findings that we noted during our audit so far. So flipping over to the next page, on page 89 of the report is the internal control finding that I mentioned.
When you say non-compliant, how serious are they?
It's serious enough that we have to bring it to your attention in this report.
And they're on the way to being rectified, or?
Some are, and we'll kind of get to that. But starting with this internal control finding, y'all had a finding for timely account reconciliation. There were significant accounts that weren't reconciled by the end of the year or in a timely manner by the time we started our audit, that we're going to have quite a few adjustments like we had last year. A lot of that's probably due to y'all didn't have a CFO for a few months, and it took time for the outsourced accounting firm, Falcon Winkler, to come in. They did their best. What they did was they just kind of focused on that pool cash account because that's kind of the central basis to everything that y'all do. However, they just ran out of time. We had to start the audit, and they prepared some entries after the fact that we started and presented it to us, but we still made quite a significant amount of entries. So we did have to note that. That's going to be resolved because they've had time now. They started back in March or April. They have a full, not a year, but they're getting close to a year, and there's a plan in place to transition this to a full-time CFO and assistant CFO. So they're going to train the next people up to show them how to reconcile these accounts, and they'll have more time to prepare everything. And I think they're pretty caught up to date from when I last talked to them.
And how does that happen? How does that usually, end up going that route like that? For the accounts like kind of be in that state of reconciliation, how does that occur?
It's just timing. One of the big ones that we had to do was accounts receivable for industrial billings. They were billed. Operationally, they were billed and they were being collected on. In the book side being recorded, they were not recorded until about mid-October when we started. So we kind of helped hand in hand. We've had some experience doing this audit, so Falcon Winkler leaned on us, and we leaned on Falcon Winkler to get the transactions recorded properly too. Accounts payable. Payables were recorded for the first disbursement of the year. So that first check run that they ran in July 2022, they recorded those as payables. You got to go further than that, but they were focused on getting cash and that reconciliation done timely. So that's what really happened was they mainly focused on that cash account instead of focusing on everything else. I don't know if that kind of clarified that,
Yeah.
but
They didn't give them much attention to it, basically.
I don't.
Kind of was just, like you say, focusing on other areas and not.
I think they made a strategic decision when they ran out of time, and we have to get started. We have December 31st to submit this audit report for you guys, and it's early October, getting to mid-October. If you can tie in that pooled cash account, and it's not fun to do, you have a lot done. You can have payroll reconciled, and you can have your bank accounts reconciled. And those were issues last year, such as that missed retirement contribution in the prior year. That didn't happen again this year. So it's one internal control finding versus the multiple that that the city had last year. And like I said, y'all without an accountant or CFO for about 2 to 3 months. That's a hard task. You got to run the city hall. You got to pay bills. You got to pay employees. To go 2, 3 months, that's kind of a tough task, honestly. Moving on to compliance findings. The first finding that we have is potentially a prohibited use of public funds, donation of property. There was a sidewalk installation on North 11th and Michigan Avenue, or Michigan Street, which varied from traditional installations of sidewalk. when I'm looking at that, the sidewalk was being constructed, and it posed a greater risk of flood for the property that was on there. So the city expanded the concrete and installed drainage onto a private property, but they didn't receive compensation from that private property owner. That could be interpreted as a donation of property, because right now there's concrete and drainage improvement on that property. And per Article 7, Section 14 of the Louisiana Constitution, you cannot do that. So what we considered was, we're not making that determination on if it is a violation. It can potentially be a violation. Based on management response, that increased risk of a liability of flood on that property outweighed the cost of installing that drainage and concrete. And there could have been a lawsuit if it flooded. Apparently it was pooling water. So in the middle of that project, what we hope is, and our recommendation is, if anything goes outside that traditional scope of installation of a sidewalk or anything, any kind of project, bring it to the council first and have a consideration of, is this approved, and is it okay to do?
Or if we get some reimbursement from the organization there, that would make a difference?
That would have been fine, because they would have
How
paid.
about now? You know what I'm saying, like right now, would it make a difference or not?
I don't know if timing would have made a difference. As of the moment with the audit report, as of year end, June 30th, it is what it is right now.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, because it's a private property. It's not cities. That sidewalk started initially within the servitude, but it expanded past that point. So once it went past that point, that's where it starts to go into that line of, you may not be in compliance with that law. But
Just saying, because of the liability that, is kind of was making, he probably had to make like an executive decision on what would be best at that particular location.
correct. And I'm kind of,
Yeah, and the liability that may come from it if it happened to flood and the flood water get into the building and damage the building.
it was initially a sidewalk.
Where it had to come up to level, to the level where it would be able to flow properly.
Yeah, that's correct. It was a drainage sidewalk project, and we had to extend it beyond the drainage to alleviate the possibility of that building flooding, because the floor elevation of that building was too low for the project that we were trying to perform. And that's what he's talking about, the extra concrete that was used to complete that project.
I'm not here to make that decision. We're not attorneys. We're not engineers. We can only, yeah, more of, I'm not saying you are or not in compliance with that, but it raises the potential, and I just got to report that. It's kind of out of our hands once that happens. Thank you. And it's in this report. I'm trying to summarize it as best I can. It's about a page and a half long. But they brought up other instances from other municipalities where they ran into the same issue and it was okay. That because of that risk of liability, the cost would have been out. The benefit of making that executive decision and saying, we got to do it, we don't have time to get approval. If we don't do it and the next rain comes in, it could possibly flood. I think that's where management's response is coming from, that we had to do that.
Okay.
The next finding is actually related to this. There's a potential violation of ethic laws for related party transaction on that same property because it can be considered a donation of property. That would be in violation of that previous law. The mayor is a member of that stone lodge. So that raises the consideration of, is he also a related party? And if it's considered a donation of property, can it also be considered an ethics violation? Management's response to this is when they looked into this revised statute 421112, that Mayor Lee is not an officer, director, trustee, partner, or an employee of that stone lodge, and this wouldn't be applicable to them. Again, we're not attorneys. I can't make that determination, but this was kind of a two bird, one stone type of thing because he was a member. So we have to raise this as an issue, bring it up, and the same recommendation as the previous one. If there is a project that went outside the scope, and you can do it timely, bring it to the council, bring it to legal, say, can we do this, and do I have permission to do this? That way, you got 6, 7 people that are saying, yeah, I think we're good. But again, we get to the timeliness of it. The next finding is a failure to comply with Local Government Budget Act regarding the requirement to amend the budget if there is a greater than 5% variance, unfavorable variance in total revenues or total expenditures. Y'all had 2 funds, governmental funds that are not the general fund, low-income housing and municipal complex debt service, that were not amended that met that 5% or greater unfavorable variance. For low-income housing, y'all had total expenditures that were greater than 5% that weren't budgeted. That's kind of outside of y'all's control as to how much expenditures happen, but y'all still know what's going in and out, and y'all still have to amend that budget for that. Our recommendation is just at the end of the year, take a look at the books, take a look at the expenditures and revenues, look at your budget and just compare it and say, are we within 5% or not? And I think that would have just resolved that issue. The Municipal Complex Debt Service Fund had revenues and expenditures that had a greater than 5% unfavorable variance. The revenue was a little bit trickier in that because of the refinance, y'all initially budgeted for the previous bond payment. So that principal and interest payment. That comes from the general fund that's recognized as revenue on this municipal debt service fund. So y'all budget for, I want to say about $240,000, $250,000 in transfer in proceeds to pay off the principal and interest. The actual amount that you needed was less because y'all lowered the interest payment. So y'all budgeted for $250,000, y'all really got $200,000, $212,000. I forget what the exact amount was, but it was about an 8% variance in what you expected to receive. Expenditures were higher because y'all had a bond debt issuance cost. Because of the refinance, y'all had about $60,000 in bond expenditure or bond issuance costs that y'all had to pay to relieve the old bond and take on a new one. It just wasn't amended to reflect that $60,000. So y'all were over on that. What's that?
Of course it wasn't. That don't surprise me.
So,
I love Audra McCain.
but basically that, at the end of the year, y'all still need to look at that. The revenue one is, that shouldn't happen again. Y'all are probably not going to refinance that bond. But again, this is just more of that control in place of just take a look at it at the end of the year, have Falcon Winkler help, have the CFO that comes in, just set a control in place and say, we're going to look at all the required budget to actuals. Where do we stand? So general fund's fine, but y'all still got these couple of other ones on the side here that y'all just got to get straightened out. And the last non-compliance finding, the utility department past due receivables. This is a repeat from prior year because y'all have an ordinance 86-3 that requires disconnection on customer accounts if they don't meet within, if they don't pay in full within a certain deadline. When y'all go over that and y'all set payment plans, if you can just pay this and you pay this, you're good to go. That's where this came back into play. When in our test for that utility billing computation that I mentioned, we also test receivables on customer accounts as of year end. When we tested our sample, everybody paid up to in full or within the prior month as they needed to be, but it wasn't within that timeline of that ordinance. So this came up again. Our recommendation is you should follow the ordinance at all times or have council approve or change the ordinance. It's not a law from the state of Louisiana. This is something that y'all put into place. And I think we already talked about it with the mayor this morning, potential plans that y'all can put in place, changing the wording of the ordinance, anything that might help out getting rid of this.
And that's giving extensions? You said it's from like giving extension, payment, like setting up like a payment plan, okay.
So you're saying the ordinance doesn't allow for payment plans?
It's not so much the payment plan as much as the payment plan allowed them to go past the deadline. There was a certain, within a certain day of the month, the next month after it's due, you gotta cut them off. Now, I understand there's a hard aspect to this, but when I'm reading the ordinance, you gotta follow the ordinance. I'm just reporting. It's a repeat finding, I think.
Yeah, this probably could continue to repeat.
Yeah.
And I think everybody may ought to help somebody with a bill.
And yeah,
Yeah, you know, kind of who probably maybe going through a hard time. COVID definitely brought that on. So I can see that happening in the prior years. With that, a lot of people went through a lot of hardship. So I'm sure the mayor was doing what he needed to do in his best interest. I mean, in the best interest of the people.
Right. And like
To
I
help.
said,
Let me put it like that, to assist.
completely
Not like
understand.
we have any programs here that really assist too much
Right,
and have a lot of money there to help.
we even brought that up. Is there an outside program, a not-for-profit, that can help with this, that can help those? And apparently, it's very in high demand. There's not enough hands to help on this one. And you brought up a good point with COVID, because when that 2020 year with COVID, there was a state of emergency declaration that did not allow cutoffs. It was okay to do. So that's fine. But it didn't necessarily mean that the accrued billing went away. So then when that declaration went out of effect, now you have people that were already kind of hurting. Now they have a bill that they can't pay. Tough situation.
and I can see it on a case by case. It's like, Port Allen's such a small town, West Baton Rouge. Joe had a little run of bad luck. You work with him for a couple of months, but not, an umbrella, so. And, obviously that goes against that ordinance as it's specifically written, but I don't know, we're still a small town, and maybe I shouldn't be saying what I'm saying, but I mean, you can't carry people indefinitely.
Some areas seem like it'd be worse to be in compliance. It's not, it's supposed to be for like, hey, the situation, like, we're gonna tip it over, but
At least with the other ones, those were state laws and regulations. This one's y'all's own.
Yeah.
we could change that, we could.
And that's what the recommendation is. Follow it or change it.
Okay.
but we do have to bring it to y'all's attention. And
Thank
just
you.
to kind of wrap this last little part, prior year findings on the next page. Y'all had findings for journal entry approval, bank account reconciliation, retirement contributions. Those have all been cleared. There was no issues with retirement, bank account reconciliations or whatnot. So, but utility department passed due, as we were just talking about, that's a repeat. And that's it. That last, yeah, there's no good sandwich method here. Financially, y'all did okay.
Well, that's good, because our constituents always think we're in a deficit, like the city just, the city don't.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. Y'all do have it's a net position deficit in y'all's business type activities because so much assets are tied up to the actual infrastructure. So that's considered investment in fixed assets that's in a way restricted. So it says deficit, but it's not really a deficit. Just over time, as you're paying the debt, as the amounts are being depreciated, it's going to come back up. And you can kind of see, I think y'all went from a $700,000 deficit and unrestricted fund balance to $200,000 or $300,000 deficit. So it's going in the right direction.
So the mayor done something.
So I don't know if there's anything else that y'all have to ask or have any questions about.
I'm fine.
Maybe a little too thorough, but I had to go through everything, and it was a longer report than usual, man. It's 94 pages, and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, our next CFO, I guess you kind of have to work closely with them just to make sure that they.
I cannot recommend that enough. And Falk and Winkler knows, and that's in place, and that's their plan. And
Because
Michelle,
they make a lot of money. We pay them a lot. So we gotta make sure they doing what they need to do and running the city business correctly.
running the city is not cheap. But no, it's really important to have that. You don't want, like with Falk and Winkler, to just come in and there's no, like, they didn't have training. They got thrown into the fire. And that's why I didn't want, when you had mentioned about Falk and Winkler and they had to choose a different method, there is a learning curve that's pretty steep with everything. And so, honestly, without them, this could have been way worse. This could have been pretty bad. So they're not here, but I do want to give them a lot of credit in helping out. And Michelle Jones specifically is that person. She did a pretty good job, and she helped out a lot.
Well, I'd just like to say, part of the issue is when y'all have a key position that leaves and you're out, that you're without that position for months. It puts the city in a bind, and we've talked to the mayor and Lance about maybe looking at, is there a way if someone can't attend to their position for a period of time, you can move and replace that position, so it gets to be concerned when, you don't have a CFO for 3 months. I mean, that's a lot, especially, and then we need, and part of that finding and suggestion is to have backups or in a plan for backup when something goes wrong, because it happens. I mean, if something happens to the mayor, you got a mayor pro tem that steps up and takes over. We should have that for other positions as well.
Well, we have Mr. Dago now, that's how it is.
I was gonna say, y'all actually did have an assistant CFO, but I think they left at the same time.
Right.
It was a I'm sorry.
What's that?
No, I don't know. No.
Thank you.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank y'all again. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Shut up, Clerice.
All right, let's go to agenda item 6. Consider approving a budget amendment in the amount of $15,000 to cover the costs of the contract for Data Center LLC for the redistricting services. Mr. Joseph stepped up.
Originally I thought it was saying the data center for here. I was like, oh, no, it did.
Let me see.
No, I know.
You all already approved
Yeah.
the arrangement. However, the funds were not budgeted, so we need to do a budget amendment.
I move.
I'm a,
Got a motion by Councilman Riviere, second by Councilwoman Lacy.
yeah.
Any objection? Hearing none?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, consider authorizing mayor to approve the emergency repairs of the effluent discharge line at the wastewater treatment facility in the amount of $23,767.98 by Spinks Construction. Mr. Joseph?
Yes, council, we discussed this last week. We received the invoice. You should have copies of the invoice for the services as well as the itemized bill for the materials purchased from Ferguson. It's an 18-inch line. The materials were rather expensive, almost $13,000 in materials alone. So just want to get this authorized so we can pay Spinks.
Nothing cheap, huh?
Nothing's cheap in this business.
Got a motion by Councilman Brown, second by Councilwoman Gordon. Any objections? Hearing none?
Yes.
Yes.
Agenda item 8, consider approving funds for the Port Allen High School girls track team for the purchase of uniforms in the amount of $2,600.
But this has been very interesting, definitely for me, because I had a lot of questions in regards to funding sources, as well as the budget for the girls' track team. And the person who came to represent it, which is Councilman Joseph, I don't see him here tonight, he couldn't seem to answer some of the questions that I had, so I had to go and do a little research. So I have learned more about how the whole operation works and the protocols and the chain of command, which the school board funds the school. The school has a budget, and that budget is used to take care of the needs of the school. If the items or anything that the school need is not within the budget, then they have to go to the school board and request fundings, which the school board have been good in helping them. And so far, according to Mr. Jackson, we spoke with him today, he haven't even been turned down from the school board from when he go ask. Also, he didn't have any knowledge about the request for the uniforms, because he would have actually went to the school board and had the school board take care of it. Within the school system, there's your athletic department as well. See, I want to kind of clear up some misconceptions that people may have, because I had these same misconceptions. The athletic department does not take care of the programs per se. They may help with the fueling, or maybe feeding the kids, but the actual programs have to take care of themselves. The football team, the basketball team, are the big revenues, are the people who bring in the big revenues. So they can help the other sports that don't bring in so much money. They have the option to help them or not. These programs have to have some type of sustainability measures in place on their own. One of the biggest is fundraisers. That's how they bring in money, or sponsors. Well, when you don't have great creative fundraisers that bring in money, then you kind of back at the mercy of maybe your sponsors. Your sponsors usually are your parents, your businesses, even like your municipalities that they come to. What I witness is we have a lack in sponsorships. Our businesses here in Port Allen do not support our high school like the businesses in Brewley. They are selective in who they support, in what program they want to support, and that's hurting our schools as well. Because some of those programs do have to fend for themselves, such as the track team, because they're non-revenue. They don't have anything that come in. So basically, they are at the mercy. But they do have to also work for themselves, and they do have to be creative in that. But it was very important for me to understand who was supposed to be the one to fund these programs. That's like what's important to me, because I didn't think the school board did anything if you would just listen or look, but they actually do. So
This is coming from Mr. Jackson.
this was for Mr. Jackson himself. I spoke with Mr. Jackson. I spoke with the superintendent, David Corona. I spoke with Terry Bajeron. I spoke with a lot of elected officials to get some understanding, because I think nobody really understood the operation. Nobody really understood who's supposed to fund what and where the funding should come from. The parish have not done anything for the school through a public request on my behalf in the last 5 years, since the last 5 years. The city have been good with helping, with helping the schools out, and as well as the school board.
Ms. Lacy, good work. But I'm gonna have to speak up for the parents, because I was on that board. They don't come extra pay.
Well, that could be the very reason.
As long as I can on the board, and when, witness who came and asked, they do not come and ask the parents for anything. Not a penny.
And the proper protocol was they were supposed to go through the principal, and the principal would advocate for the funds, because the school does have a budget. So the principal would advocate for the funds if it was not in the budget to the school board, and the school board would approve it. That's how the chain was actually supposed to go, but,
Well, and since that they did come and ask us, and they do supposed to do the school board, can we just give them half and then the school board pay the other half?
yes, that is exactly what we decided.
Give them 1,300, then the school board pick up that, and now that we know that the change of command for them to go to the principal, and the principal go to the school board, then come out and ask, to help sponsor, but they don't have the funds to do. But since they did come and ask us in advance, and we did not know protocol, but now that we do, I think we should give them half of their amount, and if the school board pick up the other half.
I think on our invoice, they had two items, which was the track uniform and the suits. Well, as our conversation, yeah, you gotta look on,
I moved to give them half or 1,300 or, well, so how would that work since we're not physically giving them money?
I moved to pay for the track uniforms completely.
And the city would pay the invoice directly.
Right, so she's saying 900, I'm sorry, so I'm on track, so.
Well, let's just do half. The bill is 2,600, so let's go 1,300. We give everybody else.
The request was 2,600. I think what she's trying to do is avoid a situation where you approve an amount and you have to
Boom.
split it up into different transactions.
Yeah, because this is what they provided, which was, this line here is 900 for track uniforms, and the other one was for travel suits. And even our conversation today, I think we clear that if we give the 900, they're gonna get the 1,700. Cause Mr. Jackson is pretty much on board now.
I got a motion to pay for uniforms at a value of $900. I got a motion by Councilman Brown, second by Councilwoman Gordon. Any objection? Hearing none?
Yes.
Yes, and thank you to Councilwoman Lacy for bringing a lot of clarification to this.
Yeah, it's been long standing.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item 9. Consider awarding the contract for the dewatering box conversion at the wastewater treatment facility to J&G Third Construction LLC in the amount of $151,522. Mr. Tony Arico?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Essentially, this, we did present this at your committee meeting. We took bids, and the estimate was 150, and the low bid was by J&G. The second bid was 169, so they were relatively close. So, and this box, the reason we pulled this out to be its own little project is it's desperately needed. And so we recommend that y'all award it to the low bidder. We know them, we've used them, not used them, we've seen them work before.
I move.
I got a motion by Councilman Riviere, second by Councilwoman Lacy. Any objections? Hear none?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 10, consider awarding the contract for the pump station generators to Schutz Electric LLC in the amount of $558,487. Mr. Arico?
And this actually bid opening, we had to push, so it was not, we opened the bids the day after your committee meeting. Essentially, we've got 3 bids. Unfortunately, one person made an error that we had to throw them out, but fortunately, they were not low. And the nice thing with this is Schutz Electric, we're familiar with them, and they're in Port Allen. So, you know, whatever they buy or do, they're keeping it, I'd like to think, keeping it close. This project, y'all probably remember a while ago, we talked about putting a big generator at the treatment plant. Well, and there's also 2 major pump stations, and we got this is a very good price. I'd recommend that you do it because, quite frankly, on this one, I thought we were gonna be much closer to 700,000. So, I would recommend that y'all award it and strike while the iron's hot.
I got a motion by Councilman Brown, second by Councilwoman Lacy. Any objections? Hear none?
I really like that they're gonna put the money back, kind of back into our community, back into our economy, so hey, that's a win-win situation.
Yeah, it's great, and you know, sometimes when you start a quote-unquote, you know, even a contractual relationship, then they have the inside track because obviously they're local, and hopefully they'll continue to be successful on the bids for the city.
Yes.
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 Thank y'all.
Thank you,
Tom.
Mr. Arico. Agenda item 11, consider introduction of an amendment providing for the revision of section 2 through 150 of the Port Island Code of Ordinances regarding banking authority for signing checks. Mr. Joseph?
As you recall, we recommended an amendment to this ordinance. Currently, the mayor has to sign all checks, and in the absence of the mayor pro tem, and the CFO, and in the absence of the CFO, the CAO. In light of the CFO's office being vacant for some time, it was suggested that we modify that requirement so that any authorized signer, in addition to the mayor, can sign. That way we have a little bit more flexibility. The mayor's always going to sign, and in the absence of the mayor pro tem, but that second signature can be the CAO, CFO, or the mayor pro tem, as authorized by the bank and the account agreement. So just provides a little bit more flexibility in order to continue operations in real time.
I move.
Got a motion by Councilman Riviere, second by Councilman Brown. Any objections? Hear none?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sign my check.
Agenda item 12, consider authorizing Mayor Lee to make the following employee step increases after completing their 6-month probationary period. I have 2 employees. One is Capricia Carter. She's a utility clerk in administrative department. increase from step grade 109C to 109D, retroactive to the pay period of June the 10th, 2022 through June the 23rd, 2022. She started off as a part-time worker and was hired, was promoted to a full-time position once that position came available. The second person is Marcus Williams. He's a Class 1 operator in wastewater treatment department. His increase from step grade 110B to 110C, retroactive to the pay period of September the 15th through September the 28th of 2022. And he also completed his 6 months probationary period after passing his Class 1 operator license in treatment and production with the sewer treatment plant back in when was that?
September?
Yeah, it was 6 months prior to September.
Yeah, okay.
So March. I got a motion by Councilwoman Gordon, second by Councilman Brown. Any objection? Hearing none?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item 13, condemnation proceedings. Begin with 13A, consideration and action related to proposed condemnation of the property located at 1117 Avenue B, Port Allen, City of Port Allen.
Council members, you should have two packages in front of you. We'll do the first one, 1117 Avenue B. The first document you should have in your package is a property assessment report generated by Third Coast Architecture, who is the inspection agency hired by the city for purposes of condemnation. As you can see in that report, windows that open must have fully functioning locks. Windows cannot have any panes missing or broken. Door frames have to be in good working order. Door frames have to be level and plumb. Door frames cannot have excessive deterioration. Ralph Zion's opinion is the structure you observe today satisfy all of those requirements and ordinance. Noted, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Alvarez?
No, sir.
At this time, we'd ask if there's anybody here to address the status of the property. I believe we have Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, this is your opportunity to address the council.
Okay, Councilman, how y'all doing today? This evening? I know I met with y'all in March, told y'all I was gonna try to get the structures framed up. I went to do it, but I'm not the sole owner of this. It's my grandfather, grandmother property. And all of those are deceased and all the sisters and brothers, so I'm stepping in trying to save it, but I didn't want, I was gonna do it myself, like I told you all, I was trying to frame it up. But then, I said, I tried to get a contractor. It was a little expensive, and I was saying I was gonna try to do it myself, but I needed more time. And, I got a lot of heirs to that property, and I didn't want to dump my money into it at the time, too. And then they come in and say, okay, this is my house, or this is mine. So that's what I'm trying to do. I was trying to do now legally to get it into my possession or something before I do anything to it. And that's what it came about. Because they act like it's 100 acres over there, so everybody said want a piece of it. So that's why they want to put my money into it.
Putting it together.
Yeah, they don't want to do that. You know, once I frame it or whatever, they gonna want to move in. Even if I have to tear it down, they gonna want to put something there. So,
Yes.
before.
I'm sorry. Has there been any discussion about, demolishing the house and then selling the property? I mean, and
No,
then
we're not gonna sell it.
You're not?
It's my grandfather and grandmother and the family. It's sentimental property to me. And before my mom passed, she was trying to get something done to it. And that's how it's in the situation is right now. They was changing the roof, and they got into it. Two of my cousins got into it about it. And he said he just stopped messing with it. Somebody called it. I know y'all probably know him, and that's how the house got in the condition it is right now. But if I can get anything legally that if I dump my money into it, they can't just come in there and say, hey, I'm gonna live in here also, you know. So that's the situation I'm in now. That's why I didn't do anything to it after I talked with you all in March.
Well, I just asked the question, like, even if they did, if it condemn it, then the property will still be yours. The property, even if you're going through the legal,
Mm-hmm.
going through the legal part, the property will still be yours. So maybe you could just start over and build something. If it's yours, then why start from that? Just start fresh.
Just because it was in the family and
I know, but
that,
look
but
how much
I
you
know
have to.
it went bad, but huh?
So that was another one of my questions to Mr. Alvarez. Anything can be fixed if you have limited resources, but you're an architect. From a practical standpoint, would anybody actually try to fix that from a financial standpoint, or is that something you just have to demolish and start from the?
You can't put a second story on a shaky foundation. The sill plates for this house you've seen it.
Yeah, I passed by that before I came
They're
here.
rotten. Everything from the piers up has to be replaced because it's in such disrepair. Because you come back and you start putting good lumber on top of that. Once the sill plates rot out, the whole house is gonna fall.
The guy that I talked to, he was like he was gonna replace all that, but
Right. And at that point,
I mean, it wasn't gonna be any old.
Down the house anyway to replace that, correct?
yes, it's.
You can.
Tear down
Well,
the
you could let the
structure
city
to
do it
get
for
to the
free.
sill plates and replace the
You could change the seal plate out without tearing the whole house down. You don't think you
You can.
yeah. I know you can.
You can.
But,
your studs and your walls are rotted.
yeah,
Your joists and your ceilings are rotted. Your rafters and your roof are rotted. Because it's been open to the
yeah.
elements so long. It's gotten wet. It dries. It gets wet. It dries. Anytime wood does that, you're inviting termite and rot deterioration. So if I were advising you as my client, is it worth you putting your money in to try to salvage this structure as it stands now? I think you're throwing bad money. You're gonna waste a bunch of money on bad materials. That would be my opinion in my advice to a client. Just because of the way that it's been left for so long, it doesn't, I mean, if you wanna go back and see some of these images. This image here, we see these boards down at the bottom. This sill plate, see all these holes running up and down? That's likely indicative of some termite damage.
Yeah, I'm saying he would
This-
replace that.
Well, if you're replacing this,
Yeah.
you're replacing all your floor joists, your ceiling joists, you see how those are rotted as
Yeah.
well? I mean, it's all
know
of your
it's- I know
framing
it's-
elements.
The guy, he gave me a price on it. He said he would've did it, but like I said, when he gave me the price, I was like, well, I need to try to do something legally before I do that and put my money into it.
No, I mean, and I understand the sentimental value of it, being that it's something that is in the family. I would just hate to see anyone in that situation go out on a limb and invest significant resources into something that at the end of the day, when you button it all back up, you may still have rot problems inside your walls, inside your floors, inside your ceilings, at your roof. Unless you're just gonna replace it all. And if
That's what I was planning on doing, replacing it all.
If you're replacing it all, then you're tearing it all down to the piers.
I guess I have nothing else to say.
But then you're gonna run into
Okay.
another problem because on that particular property, you have two houses on one property. When I say two houses, you got that and a trailer.
Yeah,
So once you tear that down, you're not gonna be able to build another structure on
that's
that
what
property. with-
there's gonna be a new
the trailer,
construction
right.
part of it, so.
So, I mean, and then the other thing you have is this probably belongs to the family, so if y'all didn't do a succession, that's another problem.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's a lot that I had to go through before I put any of my money
Right.
into it, so. And like I did, I asked y'all for time, and y'all did give me time, and, the guy, the inspector, he kept calling me all the time. I told him, give me more time, but I guess I run out of time.
How many of y'all?
Huh? Oh, yeah, he got 10 in one family, probably. One sisters and brother. 14 or something like that. Yeah, it'll probably go up. Between 50 and
For the property?
40.
For that one property.
Oh, they think they're gonna get $1 a piece?
That's what I know. I'm gonna say, so how far that go down to like the great grand, all that?
Let me just say something.
Oh,
The legal aspects need to be discussed privately,
oh,
but let me just say this. If the property is condemned today, we're gonna have to send it out for bid. It's gonna take a little while. It's been difficult to identify contractors in these areas, but just because of the volume of work that's out there. So you're gonna have some time. It's not like it's gonna be torn down tomorrow, okay? But I don't think the council's in a position to give you any additional time other than the time it takes to execute the order. But I'm just saying that it's not like it's gonna be torn down this year. It's gonna probably be January before it gets done.
But the council has to
Yeah.
make an order on whether you're
That-
ordering
so,
to be
you know,
torn down
correct.
or to make repairs.
Right. And if you rectify a situation between now and then, that's another issue, right? But what I'm saying is you have time between now and the time the order gets executed try to get whatever business you need done. But beyond that, we kind of just spinning our wheels. So
Yeah.
So, council, based on the opinion and the reports from Mr. Altazan and comparing that with your ordinances, the property, the building does meet the definition of a derelict building under your ordinances and is thus subject to condemnation. So the council will have to make a decision whether to order the building to go ahead and be torn down within a certain period of time, or if the council finds that the building can be repaired, it can order repairs to be made within a certain period of time.
I think that you probably gonna run into situations either way you go, Mr. City. Trying to repair it, you're gonna run into just a lot that probably you even want to bargain for. And then the legal, putting your money into the succession and getting all that done, they're gonna be long, probably, and drawn out because of so many heirs. And so that, even if we say, well, hey, just saying, we'll give you 30, 60, well, that's the time frame that Lance saying. It's probably gonna take you just that time just to get the legal before you could even get to repair. It may be longer. So I think you've tried and you've done your best, but you have to have other parties that's willing to help. And you just don't have families after the big mama gone. You don't have families that stick together anymore to try and keep up the upkeep of the houses and all that. But I'm sure they should commend you for trying. But on the behalf of the city, we just can't. I don't think we probably much time. I don't even know what time to do for you in this situation, to be honest.
And Mr. Wade, if we do vote to demolish the property remains in the family. In that respect, there's not a total loss to the family. Granted, there's a lot of sentimental value in that house, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I know my childhood, but the property remains still y'all's.
And then you still have the opportunity to build on
Right.
the property. Like, it's just a house now, but you can make it a home.
All right.
And really,
And have it even more value.
So, y'all saying that, who's responsible for tearing it down? Me, or if y'all tear it down, it'll be pricey,
The council directs that it be torn down, it would go to you, to basically you and, your family members, whoever, to have it torn down within a certain period of time. If y'all don't do it within a certain period of time, then the city will hire a contractor to tear it down, and then that bill will go on the tax bill. So whoever has been paying the property taxes on the property, they'll see that big charge on the next bill.
yeah, that's what, like, me and my mom been paying it, so they're not gonna, like I said, my mom used to pay it.
Who lives in the trailer?
My cousin,
What's that name?
Jesse Lockett. He was willing to help, and maybe one other cousin, but I don't think they just won't live in the Winter's Fence, I guess.
well, would it be fair, or like 30 days to allow the family, 45 days, a month and a half? I know the holidays are coming up, so what do you think, Lance? I mean, 45 days for the family, and then
you mean 45 days to come back?
no,
vote,
to
or 45 days
demolish,
remediate?
yeah. It's a tricky time of year.
At this point in time, if they're gonna try to do it themselves, 45 days would be sufficient.
Yeah.
But if they're gonna hire someone, I would say at probably 60.
So it's the council's
It's
wishes.
taking us weeks to get
So could we, like, allow the family 60 days, but in the meantime, Mayor, we're doing our
The execution.
our homework where once the 60 days expires,
Yes.
we would be
So
ready.
We could do, and the days don't start until we get out another letter. So in the letter, the council can do a vote tonight to condemn the property, order that the offending facility be demolished within 60 days from receipt of the letter. And then at the same time, staff can be lining up a potential contractor that can do the work in the event it doesn't get done within the 60-day period.
And how about in that time, if he so happened to get the legals, all that, the issues taken care of and could move in a different direction, will it stop the process or this gonna happen regardless?
The mayor could stop the process if the mayor chooses, but that's gonna be,
It would be contingent upon what condition the structure is in at that time.
Correct.
I mean, look,
I can't imagine a succession proceeding with that many potential errors is gonna get, I'd say there's a 0% chance that that happens.
Like my first cousins, it's not 60 or something. I was just including everybody in the family, but it's 40 or 30 or at least 30. Maybe, yeah.
And you know you can't get them together unless it's a funeral. You know, to get it.
Party.
Hard to get together.
So the 60-day scenario with the city, I'll make that motion.
Okay, I got a motion on the table by Councilman Riviere. I have a second. I got a second by Councilwoman Gordon to give them 60 days to remove or repair the premises. Okay, remove the premises, demolish the premises. Okay,
60 days from what? This day?
No, 60 days.
from receipt of the notice.
The condemnation order. We'll have to do the condemnation order based on what y'all vote on tonight, and then that gets, you'll get served with that again, and then that starts at 60 days.
All right, any objections? Hearing none?
Mr. Brown? Yes. Ms. Gordon? Yes. Mr. Hubble? Yes. Ms. Lacy?
Yes.
Mr. Riviere?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Sorry.
All
All
right.
right, Mr. Sitton.
All right.
Agenda item 13B, consideration and actions related to the proposed condemnation of the property located at 1120 Avenue A, City of Port Allen.
Council members, similar to the last one, you'll have several documents in front of you. The first is a property assessment report prepared by Third Coast Architecture dated April 4th, 2022. As you can see in the last paragraph of that report, it says, based on the condition observed at the time of the inspection, it is my opinion that the structure poses a health and safety risk to the public. Since the condition of the property observed clearly fits the definition of derelict building according to section 3428 of the city code of ordinances, it is my recommendation that the structure be condemned. Attached, you'll have the pictures showing the condition of the building as of April 4th, 2022. After receiving that inspection report, the city issued a notice to show cause dated November 7th, 2022 to a Ms. Elzina Harris, who is listed as the owner of that property. That notice to show cause required Ms. Harris to show appear to show cause on December 14th, 2022 as to why the property should not be condemned for the reasons set forth in the property inspection report. And the third document you have is a UPS tracking number showing that that notice to show cause was served via certified mail to the owner at their listed address. And at this point in time, I'll ask Mr. Altazan to give the council an update on the condition of the property as it stands today.
So similar to the last property, we'll run through some images that were taken back in March. You can see that the roof and wall structures are deteriorating, water's freely entering the building.
And that is, that is correct, Council. Ms. Elzina Harris has come in and got a permit to demolish that particular property this past week. So she has, she did obtain a permit for that demolition.
So, council, at this point in time, there's really not a facility there anymore, so I don't think we necessarily have a structure to condemn. My recommendation would be to hold off on action at this point in time. Let's wait to see if all this gets resolved, which it looks like it's gonna get resolved. You know, if the trash sits out there
Right.
for a long period of time, then it'll be a different type of abatement action. It'll be basically a junky yard type abatement action. It won't be a condemnation proceeding. Is there anybody that would like to here to speak on the property or?
Like the mayor said, I requested a demolition certificate, which I received, and we have gotten it to this particular point, and we will be working on it, but right now, to try to bring any heavy equipment in, it's too wet out there, and you'll get stuck. So we're gonna continue to work on getting it in the dumpster and getting it up. And I was also informed that once this is torn down and cleared out, we could rebuild. But I also have to get a survey done because there hasn't been a survey in that neighborhood in a long time. And in order to get a survey, it may take a little while before we can rebuild, but I was told we could rebuild on that spot. And that's what we would like to do once we get it cleaned up and get the survey done.
Nice. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No, so we're asking no action on that property.
Okay. All right, Mr. Joseph.
People need,
Take that.
people need a drink. We gotta get it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it until he's up next.
We gotta get these alcoholic beverage passed.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
All right, agenda item 14, alcoholic beverage permits. Mr. Joseph?
We have 3 renewals, Circle K, Class B, Walgreens, Class B, and Chester's Holdings doing business as Court Street Cafe, Class A. I ask that you approve these in global.
Got a motion by Mr. Riviere, second by Mr. Brown. Any objections? Hearing none?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon? Yes. Ms. Hubble? Ms. Lacy?
Yes.
Mr. Riviere?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Agenda item 15, announcements and correspondence. I just want to remind the council that next Wednesday, Thursday?
Thursday, huh?
Next Thursday, the 22nd, if you hadn't completed your sexual harassment training for the year, this is a must training because it's the last one of the year. It begins at 11 o'clock here on the 3rd floor in the council chambers, and we'll have a meal afterwards. We also will give award ceremonies for employees, recognitions awards at that particular time. You all are invited. And this is the last meeting of this year. And this year went pretty well. We hoping the new year bring in a little more excitement and revenue. The city, like the auditor said, is in good shape. But I want to remind the council that we do have some positions that we have to fill. And hopefully, at the beginning of next year, at the next meeting, we'll entertain those, positions. Say again? Yeah, Christmas on the weekend, the holiday, will be that, Monday. And same thing with New Year's.
Are we allowing the bars to stay open, later? I know they came in before and that.
It's an ordinance to midnight, is it?
Yeah, it's automatic.
Yep.
Christmas parade,
The senior supper was,
the seniors, yeah, all that.
that was
Yeah,
all right.
I got to commend the seniors. That event was well attended. It was the largest attendance we had since we've been putting this program on. So I want to thank all the people who participated, and especially Ms. Rose and her committee that put that event together. And all the sponsors and people that donated gifts for the door prizes. Anybody got any other announcements?
I just want to thank you all for your donation for my car drive. It was a huge success. We did over 175, close to 100 kids that Saturday, and each kid did a pack. And so it was a great turnout.
Did y'all run out of basketballs again?
Yeah, we were out of everything. He was out of everything. So I do think you all
3
should get
basketballs.
donation toward the car drive. And also, Mr. Kurt Anderson toy drive will be December 24th at, I think at 1 o'clock.
At 1 p.m. Yeah, he has that event on Saturday the 24th at 1 p.m. That'll be blocked off from 11th Street to 12th Street on Michigan. And that will last from 1 to probably 3 p.m. Also, Pastor Ville with Children Ministries and some other ministries will have a Christmas Carol event at the depot. And that's scheduled for Thursday, 6:30 p.m. next week.
And this week from the 12th to the end of the week it started. I'm doing my 9th year of donations to the inmates. They get Christmas packages every year, and so I donate to the West Baton Rouge Detention Center for those inmates that doesn't get any fundings. So I'm doing that this week. And there's certain items they could have, so gotta think about those too.
Like hygiene items and whatnot.
They could have like candy, but nothing with nuts in it, like jelly beans, stuff like the orange slices. They could have the dry meats, cookies. They don't want to have like anything much chocolate. There's nothing to hype them up too much.
Yeah.
But hey,
Okay.
and I could pick up any items or I had partnered with the West Baton Rouge Library last year, and they allowed some items to be dropped out there. So I'm sure that's an option too. But I just was picking them up this year.
What's the date of that?
This week, well, Friday will be the day that I take them. Friday's the last day for them to receive the donations.
And once again, council, today we dodged another bullet. You know, you can't predict Mother Nature, but some other cities in the northern part of the state wasn't as fortunate. So we need to keep those individuals who lost their lives in your prayers, and those that got injured as a result of these tornadoes. But If anybody don't have anything else,
Mother Bishop was good to us Sunday.
oh yeah.
It rained and then it cleared up for the parade.
And I definitely wanna thank the committee, everybody on the committee that put the parade together. It was really nice. It was, well participated and, you know, and I saw a lot of spectators out. So it was a nice parade. You know, you always have people who's gonna complain, but we're not worried about that. We're gonna continue to push forward and continue to do the things we need to do for this city. So thank you, Rose, for everything that you've done, and Ms. Charlene, and all the other committee members. You executed well. In every area, not just here.
All right, and we'll move to agenda item 16, adjournment. Motion by Councilman Brown, second by Councilman Riviere.